when I came up against not knowing what to do in my life 25 years ago, I just felt lost. And I felt that all the things suggested to me about living life were that they were bogus. They were really false because they didn't sustain me in a very dire circumstance that had come up quite unexpectedly. So, in our lives, we never really know what's going to happen. Anything could happen. We can't control what will happen. The nature of living is that we will never know what's going to happen next. We will never know what's going to happen next. And such was the case for me. I was in a circumstance where I had never dreamt that this would happen, that this would happen to me, and I didn't have a way out. So I didn't know what to do. And all of the thinking I'd done, which was quite elaborate, all the emotional states that I knew about, all the psychology, all the philosophy, all the religion, all the praying I'd done, no matter what it was, nothing helped. Nothing at all helped. I couldn't think my way out of the box. I couldn't emotionalize myself out of this box of suffering, and I could not act myself out of it. No matter what prayers I said, no matter how fervently I prayed, I didn't feel any relief. All the things that had always given me relief no longer gave me relief in any way. In fact, things just got worse and worse. And so I felt overwhelmed. Maybe some of you at some time or another have felt totally overwhelmed by everything going on in your life, all your emotions, all your thoughts, all of your circumstances, like you just didn't know what to do and felt perhaps like you just couldn't go on. Well, this is how I felt. So if you've felt that, then you understand what that means. And all of the antidotes I had used for everything just didn't help. It was like trying to place one of those little tiny Band-Aids on a gaping wound, and the wound would just swallow the little tiny Band-Aid. The wound was so gaping. So this was a lot of suffering, and we all face this. And sometimes we're in circumstances where we can't avoid facing it. So no matter what the antidotes are we put in place, we can't avoid facing this suffering. And suddenly it all comes down on us. And this is the way it was for me. I saw and I directly experienced in my own suffering, the suffering of everyone. The suffering of everyone. And in my own suffering, what that looked like was that I saw that all of the strategies I'd adopted, all these points of view I had accumulated to make myself into somebody, that they hadn't made me into anybody, that I didn't feel satisfied and fulfilled by everything I'd accumulated. And I saw that stretched out before me was old age, sickness, and death. And that if here I was in this circumstance and I couldn't find a way to be at ease, how was I going to deal with old age, sickness, and death? So I saw all that stretched out before me, and I saw how this stretches out endlessly for everyone. Countless points of view that if comfort is sought in the point of view just as an appearance, there is only suffering there, because there's no satisfaction and fulfillment in that which has no independent origin. Each point of view has no independent origin. All the words in the dictionary have no independent origin other than awareness. So they can only be sought after as some form of satisfaction and fulfillment, but they can never lead to satisfaction and fulfillment without knowing that the constant in them is awareness. So in the great stew of all these states, bodily states, I suddenly realized how hopeless and powerless I felt. And in that, I also realized that all these thoughts and feelings, all these circumstances, no matter what they are, that they have a common source. They have a common ground. They have a common underlying basis. I didn't even know what to call it. I didn't call it being or awareness or anything else. I didn't know any of this. I just knew that when I rested as that essence of every perception, so I wasn't trying to get out of the perception by going over here to rest. I realized that the essence of each of these perceptions is complete relief. That's all. I didn't even call it relief. I just knew that when I rested, I felt great. And when I didn't, I felt intense suffering. So when I rested as each of these perceptions, I realized this immediately, that if there wasn't the ease that is the essence of each one of the perceptions, then that limited my ability to feel ease. So if I didn't just allow the ease to be the case of each perception, that limited my recognition that it was even here at all. So because I was in such dire straits, this was the only place I could go. It was the only place I could go. So first, you see, I realized that all the points of view, no matter what they are, if they're only seen as their description, then they lead to endless suffering. And that to accumulate lots of points of view, hoping that it will lead to some kind of happiness, is absolutely futile. I realized that conclusively. Then second, I realized that this underlying basis is the source or origin, the only true nature of all these points of view. And I realized that that was all that was really real about the points of view. This was the constant. This is what I could rely on about myself. I couldn't rely on anything else. And so I came to this conclusion that only that is real, only that is. And then once I came to that conclusion, of course, I had to make the choice. I had to make the choice to just allow that ease of being to be as each perception without separating the perceptions into any kind of categories like positive, negative, and neutral. It didn't matter what the points of view were for me at the time. At first, the positive and neutral ones, it seemed easy to rest as those, and the negative ones more difficult. But I realized that the great freedom was in resting as the negative ones. If I didn't rest as the negative ones, then I'd be completely lost in my own malaise. And my own ordeal of taking point of view to be real when it is not, of taking the dynamic energy of awareness to be something other than awareness, of something other than total relief. And so I had to make that choice. This is the same choice each of us as a human being. We have this choice. We have this sublime choice to just be at ease as every perception. Then we come to know through direct experience what we've heard talked about as non-duality. You see, we cannot understand any of this through intellectual speculation or through representational thought. If we try to intellectually speculate about it, we just add more points of view. If we try to put it into representational thought, icons or special things that are empowered with awareness, then that's also within thought, representational thought. So the Great Freedom teaching relies only on the direct experience of awareness, the direct experience of awareness. And it shares, all I have to share with any of you is my own direct experience. But for 25 years now, when I've shared this direct experience with people, I find that it's very easy for people to realize who they are, not in a complete way that's cut off from everything about human life, not in an incomplete way, but in a totally complete way that includes everything about human life. So you see, this conclusion that I came to was entirely through my own direct experience. When I made this choice to rest naturally as the heart essence of every perception, then everything that came up, soon it wasn't just the points of view about the circumstances that were coming up. It was points of view I'd had all my life. It was, oh, this is amazing. I see what incredible suffering taking myself to be somebody who has all these points of view. I see what incredible suffering that has caused me. It's caused me endless suffering, and it could yield decades more of suffering if I allowed that to be the case. And I saw too how, because I took myself to be somebody, I took everyone else to be somebody who had points of view. I feared myself, I feared everyone else. A split occurred between me and everyone else, a perceived split in what has never had a split. So you see, whenever there's a perceived split in what has never had a split, there's going to be suffering. This is a true split personality. If we want to talk about a split personality, that would be one, when we split ourselves off from what we really are. So you see, I saw how I had made myself a victim of all these points of view. I had taken myself to be someone who was a victim of all these points of view. So you see, I had to give up my right to be a victim of all my points of view, rather than being victimized by what is my own nature. I just allowed myself to rest naturally as the essence of it. And all of these belief systems and assumptions came up. All these are points of view too. I saw how I took myself to be a girl and then a woman. And I took myself to be someone who was expected to do certain things in order to be a good person and succeed. And I took myself to be of a certain socioeconomic status. All these were points of view that I had assumed were my identity. And I took myself to be someone who needed to marry and have children and live life in a certain way. All of these were just points of view, not a thing wrong with any of them. But when I didn't know, when I couldn't discern what was real from what was unreal, then there was something definitely wrong, because there was immense suffering. So this was very, very evident. So I had to come to terms too that all these conventional belief systems and assumptions, when they came up, I just rest naturally as that. I didn't know what was going to happen. I just knew conclusively that the relief there is in every single perception is the best thing I ever knew about myself. It's the best thing I ever knew about myself. I knew that no matter what there wasn't anyone else saying, oh yeah, you're right. You rest naturally. That relief is real. No one was saying that. No one I knew anything about that. So you see, this was entirely intuitive. It was a direct experience of the nature of every human being, not just me. And the more I rested as each perception, each point of view, the more I realized it is the essence of everyone. It's not just me. Each human being has the opportunity for the relief. And so, that when I could see all of this, then that renewed my vitality to just live as awareness. To rest as awareness. I didn't call it awareness then, I just called it relief. Relief, it gave me great relief. I felt and sensed something that I knew was totally beyond me. It included me, but it was totally beyond me. And I knew that vastness, the vast expanse of whatever this was, that is me. That's the real me. No matter what anyone else has told me, that's the real me. And the real me is without limit or restriction. So see, the real me, it can be both me and not me. It doesn't have to be either one or the other. There are no extremes that need to be adopted, not either me or not me, I or not I. All-inclusive awakened awareness is all-inclusive, and this is very important for us as human beings to understand. So when I began to realize all this and had this incredible reality of complete relief unfold as the very nature of my being, of course I wanted to commit to that above all else. I didn't want anything whatsoever to stand in the way. And an immense softness and warmth arose in me. This was physical. I could actually feel this. It was a warmth of things I had never known about myself, only because I'd been focusing on taking all these points of view to be my identity. That's the only reason I hadn't known it was there. It is here. It's inherent. It's innate. It's our true identity. I felt this warmth and softness and tenderness arise in me. It just flushed my whole being. The evidence of what I was experiencing. And that evidence of what I was experiencing is this incredible warmth of compassion and wisdom that we already are. So you see, awakening isn't some kind of cut-off state, even though it's touted to be that many times today in many different books. It's not just freedom from mental concepts. It's not true awakening if there isn't this warmth of wisdom and compassion that is awakened inseparably as it. You see, if it's just freedom from mental concepts, it's still within the realm, within the purview of point of view. It's an anomaly of point of view. It's not the conventional point of view, but it's still a point of view, no matter how much relief we might feel. And when this warmth and compassion arose in me, I just saw intuitively, inherently, innately, however you want to talk about it, how I could be in complete affinity and accord with everyone, no matter how much devastation or damage I'd caused in my life and in my relationships or within myself. I saw how to come into complete accord as that relationship. So I saw how to be with people. All this I knew intuitively all of a sudden. It was innate, inherent, as this wisdom, compassion that is already present, that can never be cultivated or developed. What already is doesn't need to be cultivated or developed.